October 6th, after a tumultuous session, the Supreme Council of Ukraine approved a milestone draft law dealing with the reintegration of the Donbas into Ukraine. It includes, among its main points, the recognition of Russia as an aggressor state. The bill states that the temporary occupation of parts of the Donbas is an illegitimate act and that Russia has no right to these territories, that any legislation enacted by the so-called DNR and LNR republics is illegal and invalid, and that Ukraine assumes no responsibility for any illegal acts perpetrated by Russia in the occupied zone.
Рішення прийнято. Росія визнана агресором.
Initially, this bill had caused a highly emotional reaction on the part of some opposition groups in Ukraine's parliament. The first attempt to approve the bill on October 5th was blocked by representatives of the Self-Reliance and Svoboda parties. And supporters of the Svoboda party also organized protests on the street in front of the parliament building. In general, the bill was criticized for not going far enough in condemning Russian aggression, for including references to the Minsk Accords, and for failing to deal with the issue of the Russian occupation of the Crimea. An alternative bill was then proposed. However, representatives of the pro-presidential faction that introduced the original draft law argued that the original formulation of the law assures the support of Ukraine's international partners, and thus the prolonging of sanctions against Russia.
Прийняття цих законів альтернативних – це підстави для можливих звинувачень міжнародної коаліції з боку західних партнерів в зриві переговорного процесу і виході з нього саме України.
However, taking into account the objections of the opposition, all references to the Minsk Accords were erased from the draft law before voting began. This law will still be further revised in its second reading, which is scheduled for October 17th.
Деякі з тих зауважень, які були зроблені до цього закону, вони цілком слушні, їх потрібно, на мій погляд, були врахувати у другому читанні. Скандал виник тільки через емоції, тому що це було тільки перше читання. Люди до нього ставились як до опозиція, і багато з депутатів навіть коаліції подумали, що одразу будуть пробивати, продавлювати рішення в той же день. На щастя, процедура виконана, перше читання, і законопроект відправлений на друге. Тому я думаю, що зараз, коли люди трохи видихнуть, то буде нормальне сприйняття і робота.
The approval of the new law on the reintegration of the Donbas represents an important step in Ukraine's attempt to redefine the legal status of the Donbas in the current condition of its occupation. By outrightly naming Russia as an aggressor state, the law aims to prevent the Russian Federation from being able to participate in any UN peacekeeping missions in the region, and so not to let the fox into the henhouse, so to speak. In general, many analysts see this law as far less controversial than was suggested by the drama that occurred in Ukrainian parliament with regard to it, especially since the law will still be considerably revised after input is received from all parliamentary factions. On October 5th, the European Parliament issued a resolution condemning Russia's systematic human rights abuses in the occupied Crimea. This resolution reiterates the Parliament's earlier statements that the Russian annexation of the Crimea was illegal, and it demands that Russia stop its persecution of the Crimean Tatars and ethnic Ukrainians in the occupied territory. It calls for the release of 44 individuals, referred to as quote-unquote political prisoners, unlawfully jailed by Russia, particularly the Crimean Tatar leaders Akhtem Chigoz and Ilmi Umerov, and Ukrainian journalist Mykola Semena.
Сьогодні ми обговорюємо справи двох кримсько-татарських лідерів та одного українського журналіста. Але проблема набагато ширша. Ми спостерігаємо репресії проти свободи слова та утиски національних меншин. Вони потребують захисту своїх прав в усьому світі. Ми вимагаємо, щоб російська влада відхилила звинувачення. Вони мають припинити переслідування кримських татар, захисників прав людини, адвокатів та інших.
The European Parliament's resolution calls on the European Court of Human Rights to give the highest priority status to applications from Crimeans seeking redress because, quote, the Russian domestic judicial system cannot and does not provide legal remedies in these cases, end quote. The resolution also condemns Russia's militarization of the Crimea, which, quote, threatens regional and pan-European security, end quote. I'm Tania Stech, And this was Ukraine in the news.
Канал 1+1 тепер доступний на Bell International Programming.